John Fredericks. He's America's Godzilla of truth. All week long, he's world-renowned for his proficient proclivity to prophesy the people's political picks with pinpoint precision.
Yeah, baby.
Then, on the weekends, he gets with the guys that are pretty wise, and Godzilla wins. Godzilla Wins, the sports picking show for winning dough. Money lines, parlays, over-under, the best plays. You choose the game, Godzilla picks the winners. Get expert analysis, exclusive insights, and have a little fun. When the game is on your mind and money's on the line, Godzilla Wins is your guide to picking winners. Godzilla Wins, on the screens of your TV and favorite devices, commanding radio airwaves far and wide. Before you make that play, hear what the Godzilla crew has to say. Presented by WestVirginiaSportsNation.com, it's time for Godzilla Wins, all across the John Fredericks Media Network. Oh yeah,
for entertainment purposes only.
All right, good morning here, live from Myrtle Beach. The background you see is, of course, PNC Park, great ballpark in Pittsburgh, which is underperforming Pittsburgh Pirates. Joining us from outside of Pittsburgh, Brendan Statler, West Virginia fan who covers West Virginia sports on West Virginia Sports Nation. Correct, sir?
Yes, sir.
Good morning. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Well, good. It's a great Memorial Day weekend here at Myrtle Beach. Very grateful for the sacrifices of those who gave their ultimate for our freedoms and our benefits to be able to do this show live from all different corners of the world, essentially. I'm here in Myrtle Beach with the family for a family wedding. Will Saxon getting ready to join us there, who carried me around the golf course yesterday. It was a brutal reality, but we managed to tie after 18 holes of two-man's captain choice with William's brother and their probable brother-in-law in the future, if all goes according to what we're suggesting. Nice little golf course there, the Harris Club here in Myrtle Beach. But before I want to dive into what is ostensibly a monologue / rant for this week, I do want to give a special shout out to many people who have gone before us in this life to give us the freedoms that we have. And I think we take a look at these 3-day weekends, we kind of go, yeah, it's great to have a 3-day weekend, but you really need to step back and just give thanks, deep thanks for those who died, protecting our freedoms, we've had some controversial conflicts over the years, but without the United States of America leading human freedom around the world, we don't have this opportunity. And I think it's really important to recognize that, to celebrate that, and to take a moment in your weekends. It's just not for the young men on the show here today, but also the men and women around this country and frankly around the world. The sacrifices the American public has given to defend liberty and democracy and freedom around the world, and it's especially poignant to do so. And especially want to give a shout out to a friend of mine from college who signed up at the age of 40 after 9/11 and signed up for the Army. Chris Coughlin, at the age of 40, signed up with a master's degree. Could have been an officer. He chose to enlist and become an infantryman in the United States Army. Became an intelligence officer, and died in Afghanistan in 2009. Was killed by an IED. It's a brutal reality that when some people sign up, a lot of kids do it 18, 19 years of age, but Chris signed up at 40. And before he left, we were in Baltimore, Maryland, with a bunch of guys for the weekend. And I asked him, I said, Koff, why are you signing up for the military? I mean, you're damn near, he was like 39 at the time, I think. So this is 20 years ago. I said, dude, why are you signing up? Why are you doing this? He said, Sax, I don't have a family. Don't have a wife, don't have kids. And I wouldn't feel right if I didn't give everything I could to make sure that someone didn't have to lose a father or a husband. So he literally put himself in position to die in place of someone else. He didn't just sign up in a noble cause. A lot of people do. But he signed up. His intent was to make sure that if someone had to die, he would rather it be him than a father or a husband. And so with that in mind, I do want to say thank you to the Coughlin family for your sacrifice, to all the people who support his charity that's named in his honor, Catch a Lift Foundation, which helps veterans, certified combat veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan get back in the gym. They pay for memberships. They coach them through the memberships. They will ship equipment to the homes of these certified combat wounded veterans of Iraq and Afghanistan wars and get them into better physical health, which leads to better mental health. And since we're in that segue, and we do talk about sports here, and it's an important part of our life, it's also really good mental health. And I think William can agree that yesterday, even though we didn't play well, our mental health was improved because we were out doing some physical exercise, having a few cold beverages, yucking it up. But it came down to the last hole. and his little brother almost broke our hearts with a chip in on 18. that would have broken the tie. But it's those moments that make life worth living. And I'm blessed to be able to share it with y'all and this audience. And we want to open up the phone lines today, and especially on Memorial Day weekend. If you have a special of a loved one or someone you knew that went and fought in a war on behalf of the United States of America, don't have to have passed. And that is a Memorial Day. You want to honor any veterans or people who served in our government who not necessarily part of the armed services per se, but might have been in a different capacity. And I want to open the phone lines. If the producer can put that in the chat, that'd be great. And I can read that out. But I also want to let you know that this show, Godzilla Wins, is available on X, Rumble, Getter, Apple TV, Fire TV, Roku, and online at jfmn.tv, jfmn.tv. All right, let's get into it. This week's monologue is brought to you by the rantings and raving that go on in my mind throughout the week. You just want to bust sometimes. But I've been talking about this on the show for a couple of weeks now, and I think it's really important for America and sports, and the athletes in our country, that we have a fundamental change in collegiate sports. It is time to recognize that there are two worlds in collegiate sports. Those sports that produce revenue and those that do not. And it's not one is better than the other per se. They're both equally important to the people who play these games, but we have to understand what's going on here. And it's patently obvious, and I use that term a lot. This is patently obvious. The NCAA has to break off football and men's basketball in particular and develop a tiered program for those colleges, and I mean tiers in leagues like we have in other parts of the world, especially in football, not American football, but soccer. We call it soccer. We can call it soccer now because the Pope's American. We just can rebrand it everywhere and call it soccer. But we have to I think we should go to a tiered approach with relegation and promotions, and just stop the lies that this is a competitive sport with Alabama and Coastal Carolina. They're not. They're completely different teams. Alabama shouldn't be scheduling Western Carolina as an off week. Okay, if you're going to pay them like pros, we should play them like pros, and just call for what it is. And I think it's going to increase the revenue to the teams and to the schools. But we also should segment off the conferences for what's known as Olympic sports or non-revenue sports, and just be real. West Virginia should not be flying out to Stanford for a league game or conference game. They shouldn't be flying to Arizona for volleyball, and those are great sports. My daughters played volleyball at a very competitive level, but they should not be recognized as on par with football and basketball and the length that they go to fulfill these obligations within these conferences. The conferences can be very robust and healthy, and you can have money flowing from the football teams and the basketball teams to support them. But we have to be honest and real, because we're not going to be able to pay the athletes what they deserve in the context of American college football and American college basketball, and have them pay for golf teams and swimming teams, lacrosse, These are great sports. I love watching them, but they're just not on the same level as revenue. And you're going to have, if you don't get ahead of this, here's what's going to happen. The top tiers of the Big Ten and the SEC are going to go, you know what? This is really about us, isn't it? This is about Ohio State and Alabama and Penn State and Notre Dame and Tennessee and Georgia and Texas. And it ain't about Vanderbilt. And it ain't about Northwestern. Sorry, great schools, great academic schools, but you're just not the same. And at some point, someone's going to, it's like what the Super League was, the idea of a Super League in Europe was going towards, which infuriated everybody, was you're not going to get away from that. And it's just time to call it for what it is. It's time to recognize that there's a difference. And that difference is in the market. And the market will determine the outcome of this conversation. Now, these schools and the NCAA, and frankly, it'll come down to congressional action because it's going to be too political. You won't get Tommy Tuberville off this one in Alabama, right? He's a United States senator from Alabama, former Auburn coach, who apparently might be running for governor. And I want to make this political because I know John Frederick says not this should be political, but eventually there's going to be so much money involved here. And the ability to make more money and generate more revenue for these colleges and for the universities and for these athletes in all of the sports. You can still share revenue and you'll get more revenue, but you have to reduce the costs and the burdens on the programs and the student athletes. A student athlete who goes to Duke, let's just use Duke because I hate Duke. It's easy to beat up on Duke, right? Because I also we'll just lump in, Cowboys fans, Lakers fans, Yankees fans, because they're the same people, right? They're the same people. But let's just say Duke is in league with California, Cal Berkeley, and Stanford. Why are their field hockey teams flying across the country? There's good enough competition regionally that will manifest itself in the tournaments going down to the end to determine who the national champions are. But at the end of the day, there's still no pro league to advance to. I mean, lacrosse has a pro league, hockey has a pro league, and they're starting to generate some revenue, some interest, but they're just not on the same level. It's just time to be honest, deal with it, and stop pretending. Stop pretending that these sports are the same. They aren't. I'll even go into Colin Cowherd. They're not the same. They've never been the same. You can't continue like this. It's time to move on. It's just time to move on. That's my morning rant, courtesy of an almost Colin Cowherd impression. Brendan, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. This is definitely something that is going to get politicized, whether we want it to or not. This is no doubt going to come down to Congress because there's just too much money involved. That's what it comes down to. And you talk about these lower level sports. I covered the West Virginia women's tennis team this year with WVSN. They were having matches out in Arizona. There's no reason a team like that should be traveling that far out because tennis team doesn't generate the revenue that basketball and football do. You're right. They're not the same, but the schools aren't going to want to subsidize these lower level sports, if you want to classify them as that. And, this is going to have a major ripple effect when a decision comes down because, you mentioned the Olympics. Well, where do most of these Olympic sports, where do they recruit the talent from? They recruit them from universities. So you're going to see some schools possibly cutting programs like this, which I don't want to see happen, but there has to be a distinction between the sports that generate revenue like football and basketball and the ones that don't, like rowing, tennis, beach volleyball, whatever. It's just change is inevitable. Who knows what's going to happen? Who knows when we're going to get a decision? Because there's going to be, no matter what decision's made, there's going to be lawsuits. There's going to be higher courts involved. And I think most likely even Congress, where it's going to be a long time before this is all hashed out and decided.
And it's why I think you got to get in there and do it. I mean, let's just not kid ourselves, right? There is too much opportunity here, and the burden on the student athlete to travel around the country for non-revenue sports. And frankly, the competition Isn't that great?
Right.
Where you want to have West Virginia traveling to Arizona to play tennis.
Yeah.
They can play Carolina. They can play Duke, Virginia Tech, Penn State right in their backyard. Pitt is right there. Ohio State's right there. Bring back the conferences and make them real. Let's just not kid ourselves. Will Saxon, what are you thinking?
I'm going to take it as a little bit of a different angle here, because in a couple of ways, those non-revenue sports would not be able to exist if they are not being subsidized by the revenue sports. So they do rely on them. And then the beauty of collegiate athletics and why everyone is drawn to it is because the Coastal Carolinas go out and they do beat Alabama. 9 times out of 10, Bama wins that matchup. But that one time it's played, the game's not played on paper, it's played between the lines. And you get these amazing upsets and these amazing stories and these kids that come out of nowhere, that develop talent at these lower level schools. Yeah, back in the day, they used to stay there for all 4 years and they would create a team, and these teams go on runs. I think that Dayton basketball team that was really one of the great sports casualties of COVID, that we didn't get to see that team get a 1 seed and make a run in the NCAA tournament like everyone had thought. I think they had lost maybe 2 games that entire year. But these things, we're getting away from that because of all the transfer portal and stuff, and I understand all that. But I think there's a way for us to push back into that without consolidating all the sports, cutting them out and making them into their own leagues. And I think that's why, when NIL first came out, it was kind of like, if you think that you are worth some money in this marketplace, you can go out there and profit on your name, your image, and your likeness. You can go cut a deal with the local shops, the local, car dealers, what have you. And we're not going to get involved in it. And by the NCAA not getting involved in it, we've kind of seen some shady dealings, some coaches that aren't coming through on money promised. But at the end of the day, that's why the NCAA, I think, said that. And so, you guys go out there, you make your own money. And where I really think the downside on everything and where ours started to collapse was the free transfers. I think you have to have a system in place where there's maybe 1 free transfer per athlete. And then after that, you're sitting out a year to do it. So that's going to make athletes really think twice before they make these transfers. But to consolidate the sports, to save the lower level non-revenue sports, they're not going to make revenue regardless. So they have to be getting that money from somewhere. And it's going to be taxpayer money if it's not being subsidized by the big football program or the basketball program on campus. So I would caution against that. And those are kind of my thoughts on the whole situation. It's very nuanced. It's very delicate. And as soon as you start to mess with it in a big way, and I think, we're 10 plus years from anything really happening in this space, but I would really caution before taking those sports away and
well, let me be clear. My proposal would not take away the money that is spent by the departments on those programs. In fact, you will, I think, create more money and more revenue by creating more competitive, more realistic competition between college football and college basketball throughout the year, and still have money to go into those quote unquote, and I don't want to even call them non-revenue sports. Let's just take that concept out of the way, because they do generate some revenue. They're just not revenue positive. They're not profitable per se. But let's just call them for what they are. They're Olympic sports, right? Track and field, swimming, volleyball, and the like, field hockey, lacrosse. I mean, these are kind of sports that you would play in Olympic competition, but they're just not large professional leagues. And I still think money should flow to those within the schools, within the athletic departments. And I think more money would be generated for them. But I think just the realistic opportunity here is that you just shouldn't, to these student athletes, be spending this much time traveling and not doing their schoolwork at the same time. I mean, there's a way to do that, but I think it's damaging to the student athlete. William, you saw that. You were manager of South Carolina. You saw the toll it takes. You still have to go to classes, supposedly. But, in the revenue sports, there's like, well, does Jadeveon Clowney really need to be in math class today? Let's not kid ourselves. Yeah. What's he here for? Now, if the volleyball player for South Carolina You know, she's getting a 3.0. She wants to go to be a physician's assistant. Okay, what's she doing flying across country to play a sport that she can have just as good a competition within the state, within the region easily, and actually become a better student athlete overall? And I think develop, quite frankly, I think it takes away from competition because it's a draining concept.
I'd be willing to bet that there isn't
Go to
much
Brendan.
I'd be willing there isn't much competition difference between West Virginia's tennis team, for example, and Marshall or Pitt. You know, there's no reason they should be going across country and spending that money, because that's more money that's being wasted, frankly, having them travel all the way out there. So it's a waste of time. It's a waste of money. They have good enough competition here. There needs to be some sort of realignment when it comes to that. I'm not saying take the sports away. I agree.
No.
I agree.
Expand the sport. You have more.
I agree with you 100%, Chris. Yeah, there needs to be some kind of realignment that makes sense, because what they're doing right now does not make sense.
No, you don't develop a rivalry. I mean, I think one of the great things about competition in sports is having these intense rivalries, right? And we all grew up and just take it back to our high school experiences. You know, your high school experience, your rivalry wasn't with a team that was 3 hours away, unless you met them in the state final. It was who was around you. And those robust rivalries, the intensities of those rivalries created great memories. I remember, here's an example, guys. I went out to Austin, Texas back in the spring and met with a legislator about an issue I'm not going to get into in politics. Well, I did a little research on it before I met him. And I found out that he is actually from Harrisonburg, which was our arch rival in high school. I mean, we hated each other. This was like Ralph Sampson against my high school and high school basketball. We hate each other in baseball. We hate each other in football. We hated each other. 20 minutes away. I get in there and I'm like, so you're from Harrisonburg. You're a Blue Streak. He's like, how do you know Blue Streaks? I'm like, I went to Lee High School in Stanton. I'm a Lehman. And we're the same age. And we probably we might have played against each other at some point and didn't even know it. And the other guys were in the meeting. I said, you don't understand. This is an intense rivalry. But we bonded over our hatred back in the 80s, right? We had this ability to go, oh, this is important to us. And the other people in the room, I said, we're going to be here for about 45 minutes, fellas. We're going to be recalling. Y'all just don't pay attention to what was going to come out of our mouths. And we had this great conversation. And it was like, man, it's just nice to meet you and, have this connection. That doesn't happen in today's sports, because we're so into these travel teams growing up. Oh, youth, don't even get me youth travel sports. But there's a way to develop cohesive communities of interest that are far more transcendent and far more valuable. Can you imagine, William or Brendan, not having the rivalries of South Carolina and Clemson? Not having West Virginia Pitt, the backyard brawl. I mean, that should go down into the golf games, right? That should go down. I mean, if you're playing cornhole, that should go down to those. If you're doing bass fishing, you should have rivalries between those two schools, right? And it should be productive.
And why is the West Virginia Pitt rivalry so big? Because they're so close to each other. You're not developing rivalries like that across country, like you said.
And why do you take away Pitt, Penn State? That's asinine.
I agree.
Texas A&M. Why take that away?
And it's a shame that this year is going to be the last year between West Virginia and Pitt with football for the foreseeable future.
That's insane.
Those games should be happening every year. West Virginia, Pitt and Penn State, even Penn State and West Virginia. Those games should be every single year just because of where they're located. Everybody tunes in to watch those games.
Yeah. William, what's the state law in South Carolina?
Yeah, the state law in South Carolina is that South Carolina and Clemson have to play each other in football every single year, at least one time on the schedule. Yeah,
that's brilliant. That's brilliant.
That's a state law.
Yeah, I think the legislators saw it coming at some point. The legislators probably saw it coming at some point, where with conference alignments and this and that, and we'll just put it on the back burner for a year, or we'll get away. And the state legislator said, no, the state needs this, and
that's
it.
The
state needs it.
You hit the state needs it,
and the recruits. They come up in these high schools in the same areas, and they pick between Clemson and South Carolina and Georgia or whatever. But when they make that decision, that stings a certain community, and that even fosters, and it continues to feed itself in that way. And it's not that they're geographically close; it's that these kids also have grown up playing against each other since the time they were 7, 8, 9 years old, and through the AAU tournaments and what have you. So yeah, that just makes it a different level. And I'll say, once I got to South Carolina, everybody knows everybody in that state once you get up to a certain talent level in whatever sport you're in. So it just makes it a great experience to be a part of. I mean, that Clemson rivalry is something that'll stick with me forever.
Let me tell you, Brendan, Williams' third day at South Carolina, and he had never grown up with anything known about South Carolina whatsoever. Didn't know anything about the school. Didn't know anything about Clemson. I mean, he knew of them, obviously.
Right. Yeah.
He calls me. He's walking down his dormitory. It was like an eight-story dormitory. But he's walking down the stairs. I can hear him. He said, "Hey, Dad," he called me up and said, I'm just calling you to let you know I hate Clemson. And I was like, "What?" I was like, "What?" He's like, "I just want to let you know I hate Clemson." I'm like, "That sounds good, son." I'm glad it's a healthy hate, Yeah,
that's kind of a law when you're a student there, you have to hate Clemson. That's like if you go to Michigan, you have to hate Ohio State. That's a requirement.
Yeah, but that's what binds people. That's what there's a commonality in our lives that we have to be able to go, okay, what really matters here? Right. Yeah. I mean, and not that those things don't matter, but it's a binding element. It's an opportunity to connect with other people. And even if you're you've seen the commercials where the couple are driving. It's like a first date that met on one of those dating sites or whatever. And they're driving down the road, and so who do you root for? Oh, I'm for Ohio State, and the guy he's a Michigan fan. He dunks out the car.
Yeah, go blue. Yeah,
go blue as he's falling down the mountain.
Yeah. But I had thought that I had known rivalries between like Virginia and Virginia Tech. And then I got there, and within that like 3-day period, it was like, no, you don't understand what. It's not that we don't like them; it's that we hate them. It's not like, and it's the same way in some of these Big Ten schools. So I know it, but and we're going to a Clemson wedding. Today? a Clemson family's going to be there. So it's like, and you think about these things. I mean, you get over it, obviously, for stuff like that, but. It's an amazing part of college sports, and you got to make sure that we foster that. But it's about that keeping the geography together. So if we can make a Mid-Atlantic, Southeast type conferences, and would you propose making more conferences to do this?
Not necessarily. But the super mega conferences for Olympic sports is asinine. You just don't need West Virginia flying out to, frankly, Oklahoma State for a weekend baseball series. I mean, there's enough competition locally or within regions that you can develop. You can get just as good a competition and develop the student athletes just as much as they are. And a lot of those guys in the NCAA baseball, they're going to get drafted and should get drafted, and they can develop into minors in those systems. But I think you're taking away from the experience of developing them as students and as athletes, as potentially professional athletes, by flying them all over the country under this ruse that it matters to keep develop the conferences. It's asinine. You're taking it away from the students and the athletes, and frankly the families and all the fans who are supporting it, who go, okay, who are we playing this weekend? Oh, we're in Arizona State this weekend from West Virginia, from Pitt or wherever else. It's just, Virginia playing conference games, the Atlantic Coast Conference playing conference games in San Francisco is stupid.
Yeah, you shouldn't be waiting. You shouldn't be waiting till 10 o'clock at night to watch a West Virginia baseball game because they're playing at BYU.
No,
it's ridiculous. They're trying to make it too much like professional sports. I mean, just look at what we have with the transfer portal now. How is that any different from free agency? I mean, you see some of these guys, they're going to 5 different schools in 5 years. They're changing schools every year, and that's another change that needs to happen. Just what is happening with college athletics now? It's disastrous, and there needs to be change.
Needs to be changed. I think just go to straight contracts. It is what it is. Just call it for what it is. If you want to sign a guy to a 2-year, 3-year, 4-year deal, great, do it. Lock into that kind of development and that opportunity and that investment in the person as you should. I think the NIL is a disaster. I mean, it started the process, but let's not kid ourselves. This is not a long-term sustainable project for college sports. And I think it's draining potential revenue sources because you don't have the intensity of the local rivalries, regional rivalries feeding into that. Because, William, you brought up the Virginia Tech. Okay, it's a great rivalry, but it's not one of the top tiers. It's
North Carolina.
when we moved to Virginia in the mid 70s, it was like there wasn't much to root for. Professional sports weren't really here, and we're like, all right, I guess we got to pick one team. And then it was UVA, because a lot of my dad's friends went to UVA or followed them, and they were terrible in football, terrible in basketball. But we just picked UVA when they won the NIT, or they won the ACC tournament in '76. We're like, I guess that's our team now. That was it, right? But I think we're just taking away. We don't want to spend too much more time here. Last thoughts here.
Now, it's a delicate situation. It's definitely got a lot of different angles. If we can get to a perfect world in the college sports, I think it's going to take a while to get there, but it'll benefit everyone in the sports community once we get there. And I think NIL was a step in the wrong direction. The free transfer was a step in the wrong direction. But if we can get some conference realignment and grow the rivalries at a local level, continue to foster that, I think would be a really good first step into the long-term health of this product that we all love.
Amen. All right, let's move on. Let's move on to the NBA playoffs last night. Knicks Pacers. Knicks almost come back. Pacers take 2 in a row in New York, Madison Square Garden. Brendan,
it has been an interesting series so far. The first game, Tyrese Halliburton making the 2-point, almost a 3-point shot. Foot was on the line, so it only counted as a 2 to tie it up, go into overtime. Doing the choke sign. What a great finish. Last night, they were able to pull away with a win. That game it felt very similar to the first game. It was just back and forth, and it felt like last possession was going to win it. Well, the Pacers were able to pull it out. But just because the Knicks are down 2-0 and now going to Indiana down 2-0 does not mean that this series is necessarily over. The Knicks so far this playoffs are 5-1 on the road. However, I don't think they win the series because the Knicks all time are 0-14 when trailing 2-0 in a best-of-7 series. So I'm taking the Pacers to come out of this series, but the Knicks very well may make it interesting, and I hope they do because the first 2 games were absolute cinema.
Cinema in the Garden. And I don't think William even knows this. Were you on the show last week, William? We were talking about this?
I think so. Which one?
The Knicks. When I was growing up, they sort of became my team just by default because I don't know why.
Oh, yeah. I did not know this, no.
Yeah, because I wasn't much of growing in Detroit, I say growing up, I was there until I was 9, but there was no attachment to the Pistons when I was growing up. Dave Bing and Bob Lanier, probably the 2 ones that stood out, but there's no real vibe there for me personally. But when we moved to the Valley, I picked the Knicks for some strange reason. I don't know why. I just thought the Knicks were kind of cool. I might have played for the Knicks at the local YMCA, and that sort of became my team. They give you the jersey and say, "Oh, you're on the." I think that's it. I was on the Knicks, and they were pretty good back in the early '70s. So when I started playing YMCA basketball, and they came the Knicks, and then they had this really cool song. When I was living in New York, "We are New York. We're playing basketball. We're the New York Knicks. We are New York. We're playing basketball, and we're the New York Knicks." It was a great little jingle. And I'd walk around.
By the way,
what's that?
It's a great accent, by the way. I heard the little New Yorker in there.
We are New York. We're playing basketball. We're the New York Knicks. And so it was this kind of big. It was just fun. And when I lived in New York, I went to the games at the Garden. It was easy to walk up, get tickets. Didn't cost much at all. I walked 4 or 5 blocks from where I worked and went to the game. And I was sort of a Knicks fan, but never really continued it. I've always had a little thing for them. They were always the runt of the class, if you will, and they'd get a little spark and be pretty competitive. But I'm sort of into these games against the Pacers. I don't see it going more than 5 games in this one. I think Indiana's just got their number. Dramatic as it is, I don't think it gets better on the road for the Knicks, as you cite, Brendan. Williams more the basketball guy than I am. He followed it far more closely than I ever did. What are your thoughts, William?
I think that the way that the Knicks lost these two games is heartbreaking. They could easily be up 2-0 in this series right now. Game one, one of the craziest comebacks in NBA history. I think teams were 994-0 in the last 50 years, up 10 or more in those playoff spots with a minute to go. So really took a freak accident to get there. That deflated them. And then the Pacers still find a way to pull it out in game two in kind of a really back and forth game. So I think that the Knicks are right there with them. It's going to take a different level of grit to come back and go and take two here in Indiana. But I think that there's a chance that they do it. I've got the Knicks winning this thing in 7 games. I think that there's good value on them, finding them in some series betting right now.
Whoa. You see them going 4-1 in this series from here?
I do. They could easily be 2-0 right now. I think that they have the talent. They have the makeup.
Is that money talking or just William talking? Do we have a financial interest in this opportunity or what?
Yeah,
no, I do. Not currently. Not currently.
Oh, you don't have any money on it. So we're just talking smack. Is that what I mean? Because
I would do it. Let me go find their live price right now.
I think you need to adjust your betting model here because a 4-1 run for the Knicks.
I'm picking them to make it interesting. I'm not going to pick them to win the series then. But then again, I did pick the Knicks to get swept against Boston and see how that worked out for me.
That is true. You're on it. So William, you going to stick with that?
I am. I think that they have the makeup to win this series. They're 2-point dogs in game 3 in Indiana. They were favored in both games 1 and 2. Should have won game 1. Really like one of the greatest freak accidents in all of NBA history, especially playoff history. So yeah, I think that they can do it, and the Pacers aren't going to be able to shoot like this for a 4, 5, 6 game stretch. So I think that you look at how the Knicks have been playing them. I think Jalen Brunson's the best player on the court right now in the entire series, and Karl-Anthony Towns probably is the second best player. I think the Knicks are better than the Pacers 1 through 5. The Pacers are probably better 1 through 10 in terms of their rotation. They're a deeper team, so they can throw these different players at you.
Much deeper team.
Yeah, and that's how they've been winning these games. Is you look at the plus minuses of these bench players for the Knicks, and it's been horrific versus the starters are actually outplaying them. So, if the Pacers don't shoot what they've been shooting in games 1 and 2, I think that the Knicks could take 1, they could take 2, and then the series flips back to New York. They win game 5, probably lose 6 on the road, and then the Knicks win game 7. So I think they're going to make it very, very close.
Wow. So Pacers are much deeper. They play a deeper rotation off the bench. I think they are 10 deep, 11 deep, whereas the Knicks are 8, and that matters in the minutes, keeps your legs fresh. Do you think that's adding and helping the Pacers when it comes to shooting better in this series?
Yes. No, it definitely is. But I still don't think that they can keep it up at that level. So, being a deeper team, and Tom Thibodeau has never been one to play more than 8 players in a game, even in the regular season. He's a guy that plays his starters 40, 45 minutes. He's going to ask that of them all throughout the season. And I've always wondered if it starts to get to them at this time of the year. And maybe that's the angle here. Are the Knicks just too tired? But the Pacers are a great coach team. Rick Carlisle.
Rick Carlisle's a great coach, great coach, and Pascal Siakam is just playing ridiculous right now. But it brings in the whole question of load management. The whole, is it too much? We talk about this throughout the year. The stars who don't play all games, every game. Brandon, what are you seeing on this?
The Knicks are a much better team than many people, including myself, gave them credit for. But I can't pick them to go 4-1 against the Pacers.
I can't see that.
I'd like to see I would like to see the Knicks make it interesting and not completely get run out of this in 4 or 5 games. But I just don't see it going that far. I can't.
I just don't see New York winning the number of games they have to win on the road. I mean, to go 4-1, you're going to have to take at least 2 games in Indiana. I just don't see it. I just don't see it. You've got
taking
5-1 on
high.
the road, though. This playoffs, 5-1 on the road.
It's that
That's
one.
right. I didn't think that they were going to go and beat Boston in games 1 and 2 with Tatum in that really strong Celtics team, and they did that. So, I'm talking about just the mental makeup of this team. They're gritty.
We can talk about these things all the time. The question is, where are you putting your money?
Well, I'm telling you, right now the Knicks are plus 420 to come back and take the series. Pacers are minus 560.
That seems like a fun $20 bet at 420.
Yeah. Over under 5. Does this go 5.5 games? You can get the over at plus 110 right now.
And maybe we should be pulling for the Knicks.
I mean, this is the whole point.
The value's all there.
Look, you can talk smack all you want to. Okay, do I have a gambling disclaimer? Oh. The producers asked me, do I have a gambling disclaimer? If so, read it when you can. I don't have a gambling disclaimer. Do I have to have a gambling disclaimer? Is that the thing now? Do I have to have
1-800-GAMBLER?
1-800.
Well, I mean,
all gambling.
I am not the as William will testify. I am not the gambling guy. I signed on to a site this year because I went up to Saratoga to bet the ponies, and I had a great time doing it. And I caution anyone who does this to make sure that they are staying within the bounds. Okay, he's going to get me a disclaimer for me next week. So next week, hopefully I'm not doing anything illegal here, especially because I'm in South Carolina, which doesn't have the betting sites on the phone apps. I hardly ever play the lottery. I mean, I don't think I've ever placed a bet over $50 in my life, let alone. And it's only recently that I've been doing it online because it's a little bit more fun. I put $20 or $50 on one of the horses in the Preakness or the Kentucky Derby. It makes it a hell of a lot more fun. And I think I put $200 in my account. I'm at like 177. That's I would call myself an uninterested gambler, but it begs the point. We can talk smack all we want to about sports or companies, stock picking, this kind of stuff. Oh, I like Apple. Did you buy the stock? Well, how's Nvidia? Well, that's a great pick, is it? I mean, again, I'm not going to get into financial decision making for people out there as well. But the fact of the matter is, our decision making changes when there's a financial incentive and disincentive, right? It just happens. It's natural. Like yesterday playing golf, we didn't put any money on the deck. It was just a friendly wager. There was no wager. We were competing against each other, and that was good enough. If we'd have made it $5 a man, it's a little more interesting, especially for your brother, right, William?
Oh yeah. That would caused him to
that boy gets intense.
Yeah. $1 a hole would have him locked in. Anything for $1 with that dude. But yeah.
Well, but it changes your perspective, right? We can rationalize the New York Knicks coming back in 7, and that's a fun conversation. Did you put money on it? Were you willing to risk your thoughts in the market? And that's what we're going to get down to. Let's move over to the Thunder and the Timberwolves. Thunder up 2-0. William, what do you say?
This one, I'm thinking that games 1 and 2 were much more convincing in my mind. I think that the Thunder, when you look at how they play basketball, they win the game on the defensive side, and it's really exciting to see an NBA team commit fully to playing defense. And this young team, they have the legs to do it. Caruso locking up whoever they throw at him. It's just a lot of fun.
Who's that guy?
Dude,
where did he come from?
The SEC people know him because he was like a 5-year guy at Texas A&M that went undrafted. And as soon as I think he signed with the Knicks first in like the summer league, and everybody was like, that guy's a player. He comes, he brings that intensity with him. And he's a fun watch. But yeah, he's kind of the glue. He's kind of the piece that really fits in there, and they can throw him in, switch him 1 through 4 on all the screens or whatever. I think the Thunder win this thing in 4. I don't think that the Timberwolves really have anything else to throw at them. That's right. What
are the odds on a sweep right now? Because they go to Minnesota. Take a look at that line. Brendan, what do you think in the Thunder Wolves?
I'm
That's
actually
a
gonna
ratings bonanza.
Yeah, I'm actually going to agree on a sweep here. I mean, Minnesota has absolutely nothing going for them this series. They've shown virtually no life in the first two games. I have absolutely zero reason to believe that that's going to change in the next two. Oklahoma City's looking like the favorite to take it all this year. I think this series is over. Oklahoma City in 4.
Okay. What are the odds, William?
That's a plus 170 right now. OKC in 4. OKC in 5 is also plus 170. So nobody's thinking that this thing's going to go 6 or 7 games. They're going to wrap it up early. And the Thunder are currently minus 340 to be the NBA champions. That's quite the price. I mean, what is that on implied odds? That's got to be close to 60,
super
65%.
exciting for the folks in Oklahoma City, in Oklahoma. Because let's be honest, I mean, that's not a professional sports state. But let me back that up. Oklahoma Sooner football is as close to professional sports as you can get, especially if you have been in several games out there in Norman. It's a spectacular atmosphere. People are one of my favorite people in the world are the Oklahomans.
Yeah,
I've been to
the Thunder are the only professional team out there, I believe, aren't they?
That's it.
That's what I thought.
But
sorry to interrupt.
No, not quite all right. But they call themselves Loud City, and it is loud in that arena. I think William can remember as well going to the NBA Finals. Was it 2012, 2013? I forget. Yeah, and we went out there for 2 games, and they were playing the Heat. And that place is loud, and they get into it. It's one of those great sports markets where if you just have that one team that binds a community, and everybody's into it in Oklahoma City, and it's a spectacular. And I think it'd be great for Oklahoma. I don't know if it's great for NBA basketball because of the ratings, but also I think it's great for basketball that you have a team like this. William was talking about this earlier about how Dayton several years ago during COVID was making a run at a number 1 seed in the NCAA. But here you have Oklahoma City, which isn't, frankly, obviously LA, New York, Boston, the big ones, Dallas, Miami, the ones we're used to seeing. So I think it's great for sports to have frankly, mid-market team. If you're talking about a mid-major in professional sports, I think the Oklahoma City are the pinnacle of that construct. William, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean it's an amazing place. Those fans love that team, and Sam Presti is probably the best general manager across any sport right now in any league, and what he's been able to do, building that team up. And how did they get there? It was like Seattle had moved there. I think they played a little bit in like New Orleans. They shut it down. Oh, that's right. It was New Orleans shut down their arena. They were renovating, so the team moved to OKC for like a couple of months, and everybody was like, "Wait a second, this can really work. This can really work here." And yeah, you're talking about they've had 3 NBA MVPs in the last 10 years. Durant, Westbrook, and now SGA. I mean, it's crazy what they've been able to do and what they've been able to turn into. And I think that they're here to stay for a really long time when you look at the makeup of this team and this roster.
Yeah, the producer talked about Oklahoma City coming from Seattle. The franchise was purchased by Oklahomans and brought to Oklahoma City. However, when it was, I guess it was the Jazz or the Hornets went up there.
The Hornets went to New Orleans.
Okay, so they were up there.
Yeah, following Hurricane Katrina, New Orleans moved to temporarily relocate to Oklahoma City, and that's when they found out that can really be, a market long term.
Because in Oklahoma City you have Oklahoma football, Oklahoma State football. That's about it. Oklahoma softball. People are crazy for Oklahoma softball. Went out to the game with went out to the Tennessee game this year in Norman, and good friend of mine's brother is the president of Oklahoma University. So we went to the president's house before the game, big cocktail party, whatever. The Oklahoma softball coach was there, and she is a demigod in that state because they've won so many national championships. But that's about it. I mean, sports. Let's just be honest. I mean, it's a small market, but they are vibrant, passionate fans for Oklahoma City Thunder basketball. And I think it's exciting to see because you get these other markets around the country who look at this as a model and go, can we do this? Can we be this? Can we be this kind of a franchise, which underscores the decrepit, putrid Pittsburgh Pirates? Let's not kid ourselves. Who are number 3 in starting pitching? They have 24 quality starts, William. They are 3rd in the league, the major league in quality starts, and they still can't get to 500.
No, the rotation is ridiculously good. It's just as soon as you go to the bullpen and as soon as you ask that offense to score more than 3 runs, you're running into issues. So unless the starters are going to throw complete game shutouts, it's going to be tough to win games. It's just it's depressing. I went to the game there, I believe it was Tuesday of last week when they played the Reds, and I don't know if there were 7,000, 8,000 people in the stands. It was a depressing vibe, and I hope that Bob Nutting sells the team soon and very soon.
Well, the Richmond Flying Squirrels outdraw the Pirates, unfortunately. I'm not kidding.
I have more fun at those games. I have more fun.
It's a fantastic experience. But let's finish up the NBA.
Yeah, did you do a series prediction on the Thunder?
Thunder sweep.
Okay.
Thunder sweep.
Yeah, we're all in alignment there.
I would put a nominal amount on that. And I'm not betting the mortgage on this kind of thing, but it's not I think that's an easy bet, right? They're going to win the series. The question is, do they win it in 4 or 5? And I think that's the only unknown here. Knicks, Pacers. I can't see it getting it past 6 games at this point. I don't see them splitting the next 4. So I just think that's pretty much over. Jack Fredericks joining us from I don't know where.
Morning. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm at my apartment. So
where's Jack coming into us from?
Oh, Tempe, Arizona.
But see, there we go. This is a conference game for West Virginia then.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You missed the conversation earlier about that. Jack is back. All right. Let's finish up NBA predictions here. I got Indiana and Oklahoma City going to the NBA Finals here. Where do you see that going, William?
You got to go with whoever comes out of the West. Even if the Timberwolves do find a way here, I think that the 2 teams in the Western Conference are better than both teams in the Eastern Conference right now. You heard my prediction. I think that the Knicks do come back. They win this thing in 7 games. I got Thunder, Knicks, and then probably Thunder in 5 or 6, making quick work of the Knicks if they can get there.
Well, the NBA definitely needs the ratings to have the Knicks on board there because I don't.
Oh
think,
yeah, Pacers Thunder would be a rough one.
Whoo, that's right up there with Carolina and Florida for an NHL Finals competition. It's just a dog for NBA ratings. Brendan, what do you got?
I also have the Thunder. I can't pick the Knicks, so Thunder and Pacers in the final. And I like what both these teams are doing right now, but I got to go with Oklahoma City. I think they have the edge between those 2 teams.
Yeah, I think the only way you're going to draw an audience here, unfortunately, is to make this a gaming situation, right? Because what's the interest in here for most Americans is not NBA Thunder versus Pacers. Jack Fredericks, any thoughts in particular on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple thoughts just on these 2 series and what might happen near the end. In the finals, I think for the Thunder, they've been dominating now for weeks. They're, the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. Obviously, SGA is incredible. And I just don't really think the Timberwolves are going to put up that much of a fight. I mean, I like Ant, but they just seem to be so overwhelming right now that I think that series probably ends in 5, maybe 6, maybe. I do think the Knicks are I don't think they're going to get swept. You know what I mean? I think they take at least 1 in Indiana. My concern if I'm Indiana is offensive rebounds. Even you see last night, Mitchell kind of dominated on the offensive glass, and free throws, which, last night, for instance, Indiana struggled at the line. In game 1, the Knicks struggled at the line. It's one of the reasons Indiana was able to come back. But, you steal 2 in Madison Square Garden, you have to be feeling incredibly good as a Pacers fan. This team, the Pacers, extremely tough. Halliburton can beat you any night of the week. I mean, we saw Siakam last night go off for like 30. This is a pretty complete team. It's a team with a really good defense. It's a team that is really pretty incredible at so many different aspects of the game. And just up 2-0. I mean, you never know. Like, that's the fun thing about basketball is, like, especially the NBA. Like, I mean, yeah, the Knicks can come back. Like that, it would have to go 7 probably. I don't think the Pacers just implode. They're too mature right now as a team to do that. But I do think that that the Pacers probably win this series. It just seems like last night was such an opportunity for the Knicks to steal one with the domination on the offensive glass and the free throws, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, they lost by like 10, at the end. I mean, it was pretty close until kind of right near the end, but they lost by 3 or whatever. But yeah, so I'm going Pacers, Thunder. And I actually think the Pacers can give the Thunder a series. It's hard to be like the Indiana Pacers can beat the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Oklahoma City Thunder being, the number 1 seed all season long, such an incredible team, dominating all playoffs. But I mean, I'll be a little different. Like, let's go Pacers Thunder, and let's say Pacers in 7. You just never know what happens in these games. I'm not
that's
like a
that's the whole
fan,
thing. It comes down to, okay, fine, great observations, but do you put money there? Do you back it up and go, I'm going to make it more interesting rather than just a throwaway conversation, on the bus. This is the fun thing about Godzilla Wins. It's why I enjoy coming on here. We can talk all day long sports. We all do. Probably we all follow on the various social media sites, and it's a passion for Americans to follow their sports. At the end of the day, though, are you going to make it a little bit more interesting? And that's the fun part. And that's the fun part for a lot of folks to get that buy-in just a little bit deeper, just a little bit more fun. And we'll be talking about that when we come back. I think we got some messages coming from our sponsors, especially Rosie's Gaming Emporium. They're expanding in the city of Richmond. Actually, I think it's Chesterfield County. They're adding more machines there. Let's go to Rosie's Gaming Emporium. We'll come back to the top of the hour. Oh, it's a live read. You got that, Jack?
Yeah, sure. So it's been a long time since I've done a Rosie's Gaming Emporium live read. I don't have the copy in front of me, but yeah. So Rosie's Gaming Emporium is one of our oldest sponsors. So just an incredible sponsor for us. They've been around now for 3 or 4 years. You can catch them in all sorts of areas, as Chris said, in Virginia. I think the horse track opens up here pretty soon, and yeah, so check out Rosie's Gaming.
Well, Rosie's is part of the same company, right? As Churchill Downs. I'm not Churchill Downs, Colonial Downs. I think
Yes.
They're both owned by Churchill Downs. Is that correct?
I don't know if they're both owned by Churchill Downs. I do know it's the same as Colonial Downs.
I think that's it then. They're both owned by Churchill Downs, and that's I think their gambling site is Twin Spires. Twin Spires. We'll be talking about the Belmont coming up. That's next weekend at Saratoga. I think they're going to 3 years up at Saratoga for the Belmont. But let's if we have any more conversation about Rosie's Gaming. I've never been. Have you ever been, Jack? What have you heard? You ever heard anything? I heard good things. I heard it's fun. It's historical racing.
Yeah, so Colonial Downs is incredible, and if John was on the show right now, my father, he'd be telling you all the sort of incredible things about what Colonial Downs can offer you. He has a box there that he uses pretty much all of July. So the actual track is pretty incredible, and if you're in the area, I would absolutely recommend a trip down to Colonial Downs. As far as their casinos go, I mean, they can't be beat in Virginia. Everybody, I think, who lives in Virginia knows that. Some of the loosest or most generous, I think is the way we say it. Machines there. They want you to have a good time. They want you to have fun. And so when you're in Virginia, if you live in Virginia, check out Rosie's Gaming Emporium and or the Colonial Downs.
I love going to Colonial Downs. It's a great atmosphere. The parking's easy. You get in and out. But if you're going to go to Colonial Downs, you can be there for several hours, if not most of the day, and enjoy, I think, a fun day of watching the races. And I love what I like about horse racing in particular. Again, as I spoke about earlier, I'm not that much of a gambler, but the more data I can get in a sort of an objective way, because when you get into sports, you bet with your heart way too much. I think we all do that. You want to bet on your own team because you want them to win, but that can be a very bad line of thinking when it comes to putting a financial interest at stake, shall we say. So when I go to the ponies, there's no emotional investment in any of these horses. It's just like, okay, I look at the racing form, I take a look online, you look at the odds, you play the odds, and it's just fun. It's just fun to do that. Preakness is moving for 2 years for a remodel. Didn't hear that. Thank you on Getter. Starman Live. Going back to the Belmont, is going to be up in Saratoga for this year and next year. Make it a 3-year run in Saratoga, one of the great horse racing venues in the country, as they remodel Belmont Park in New York. And apparently Preakness is going to get a remodel as well. Hopefully this is a sign that the horse racing industry and the thoroughbred industry is growing in America. And, that's, I think that's a good sign for the sport and for gambling. Again, gambling, you got to take it easy. I think there's obviously downsides. There's addictions. You got to be very careful with yourselves, and you can't be afraid to tell someone, I think you're betting a little bit too much these days. You might want to dial it back and take a week off and turn off the the brain, if you will. I forget what the particular there's a term for it as far as in your brain. The drug, if you will, in your brain that goes off. Anyway, William, final thoughts before we go to a break here.
Yeah, I'm ready to go. I think that I was going to read out the series prices real quick. If you were thinking that the Pacers do have a shot here, plus 440 to win the NBA championship, and then the Knicks are sitting there looming at 19-1 plus 1900. I don't think anyone wants any action on the Timberwolves. They are there at 24-1. So. I love Jack's breakdown saying that anything can happen in these NBA playoffs. So I think I might be looking at the Knicks at plus 1900. If they win one game, that number is going to drop pretty significantly, and you might be able to get a decent buyout. So that's my thoughts wrapping up the NBA playoffs.
Well, we'll come back and talk about the buyout component. I think don't people understand how that can change? How you can make a little bit more money on the side, if you will, because you're not going to win the bet. But if you get a buyout, that's how the sites reduce and mitigate their losses. Let's go to a break right now from our sponsors. We'll be back here in a couple minutes. Thanks for joining us.
The best part about waking up in the morning is a great cup of coffee, and I get this every day with my 1775 coffee. It's rich, it's bold, best tasting coffee I've ever had. Single origin, farmed in Bolivia, 7,000 feet. It's always fresh, roasted daily. This is the best coffee you're ever going to get. Go to 1775coffee.com, 1775coffee.com. Promo code Godzilla, 10% off. It's going to make your day every day.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work, try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Order online fast and save $45. Your kit with prescriptions to treat common and life-saving illnesses is rushed to your door. Visit twc.health/Godzilla. Promo code Godzilla. That's twc.health/Godzilla. Promo code Godzilla.
It's the Sports Pickin' Show with the guys in the know. Presented by WestVirginiaSportsNation.com. Godzilla wins!
For entertainment purposes only.
They make me say that.
All right, we're back here. Station break there, brought to you by 1775 Coffee. I'm going to order that. That's a very I love trying out different products online like that, and I love supporting John Frederick's media network. He calls it his Patriot economy. Was that what he calls it? Patriot economy. Different companies you normally don't get a chance to see because they're crowded out by all the major marketers and the major sports programs. One of the things I like about Johnny, he also does, I think he has this company called tireget.com where you order your tires from a different source. I just love that part of our economy. You can just do and get just about anything readily available. Let's move into the NHL playoffs. Edmonton coming back against the Stars, won 3-0 last night. What are you seeing there, Brendan?
I like Dallas to come out in this series. I know they didn't have the best night last night, but this is a team that you almost can't put away. Edmonton was able to do it last night, but Dallas, they've been the comeback kids, and I think they have a little bit of an edge against Edmonton. But this series very well could go the distance. Edmonton has a solid team, but I'm going to pick Dallas in I'm going to say 6 as of now.
Okay, William, what are you seeing in the Stars Edmonton? As much as my heart goes for the Oilers, I just want that small market, mid market team, if you will. And they were so great in the late '70s, early '80s. They're sort of part of my childhood growing up. Always have a soft spot for the underdog. And Dallas, never a fan of any Dallas team. Let's just be totally honest here. Would love an upset here. Would love the underdog Oilers to spring one on there. And what a fun flight that would be from Edmonton to Miami. What do you see there?
So I'm not as big, hasn't been as tuned into the NHL playoffs, but I think when you look at the firepower that's on this Oilers team, it's no mistake that they went out there last night and won 3-0. They can really score in bunches. So if I had to, I'm going with who I think is the best player in the National Hockey League, Connor McDavid. So give me the Oilers here. Maybe this thing goes 6 or 7 because I do think that Dallas, defensively, they have the ability to win some games. It's going to be tough to go on the road there. But, I think the Oilers have what it takes to make it to the Stanley Cup final.
Oilers took one in Dallas. What do you see, Jack, up in Edmonton?
I don't know. That's kind of my take. I mean, what do you make of this series? You know what I mean? On the one hand, I think Dallas, like you said, incredible defense. The game 1 comeback was awesome. This is a really, really good hockey team. And Edmonton, in the past, has shown the ability to sort of blow these leads like that. But going up to Canada, so it's a little bit different. There's, I think, a little bit of a momentum shift here. I wouldn't be surprised if they split the series again in Edmonton. And it's 2-2. So I mean, overall, I like the Stars. I'm kind of with Brendan in that space. I really like the Stars to come out of this series. But I mean, I don't know. I thought Edmonton looked really good in that 3-0 bounce back win, and I don't see why they couldn't steal a couple more games. And again, once these series get up to 5, to really game 6 and 7, especially in hockey, you just really never know. This is a lot to me like the Knicks Pacers, and I think the Eastern Conference Final, the Panthers Hurricanes, is a little bit more like the Thunder T-Wolves. I look at this series and I think I'm not exactly sure who will end up sort of coming out at the end. Both teams, I think, have just that opportunity to do that. I'm a little bit in the Eastern Conference. I'm a little bit more confident in what the outcome might be, but I don't know. I mean, I like Dallas. I watched game 1 really closely, and that was just a really incredible comeback. And I think they probably end up doing that at least once or twice more. And if they can do that, they probably win the series.
It sounds like, is there a developing consensus here that the Oilers Stars is going to go to 7? Brendan?
I think it's possible 6 at the very least, but I could definitely see 7. It's going to at least go 6, but it very well could go 7. Yes.
Well,
yeah, I agree. Right now, it looks like Vegas also agrees. The line for total games is set at 6.5, heavily juiced to the under. They're not even giving you the ability to bet on 5.5. So I do think,
wow.
And I think Jack said it best. When you're talking about Game 6 and Game 7 in the playoffs, doesn't really matter what sport you're talking about. Anything can happen. So this is going to be a tight series, and I think it's going to be a lot of back and forth all the way through the end.
It kind of depends on what happens with the goaltending. I think for both of these teams, like Skinner and Ettinger, for Edmonton, one of the reasons Skinner, they were sort of in both games. I know they fell apart at the end of Game 1, but Game 2 he holds them to a shutout. And so it just kind of depends on what the goaltending looks like, especially for games 3 and 4. Like, can Skinner continue to goaltend like we've seen in Game 2, and can Edmonton then kind of rely on that goaltending and rely on kind of the defense to keep the scores low? And if they can do that, they probably come out of Edmonton up 3-1, and then all of a sudden maybe you can get that Game 5 juice. Maybe not. I don't know. There's also the special teams battle. Like, Dallas's power play was pretty lethal in Game 1, but pretty stifled in Game 2. So we'll see what that looks like. I mean, that's sort of always been Dallas's bread and butter. That's been their identity for a really long time, is like their sort of penalty play and how they can utilize their special teams, and it just wasn't really. It was kind of non-existent in Game 2. And you just never know what that's going to look like on the road. But yeah. So I mean, I think I'm with Will. Like, if I'm putting money on this, let's go 6, let's go 7. I think this series stays pretty close. However, if Skinner continues to play like he did in Game 2, Edmonton could take a huge lead, and then Dallas may never be able to get back into the series.
I think this could be one of those games, and not just because of the opening series, but it could be because of the intensity, because of the matchups of Draisaitl and McDavid against the Dallas Stars defense. This could be a game where you're like, okay, Dallas wins the first one in Edmonton, but the Edmonton is going to be the prohibitive favorite in Game 4 at home. And you kind of follow the betting on that. Like, 'cause it's just going to, I think it's just going to be a rock'em sock'em punch back. I don't see a 3-game sweep from here on out for either team. So as far as when you're making your predictions and you're looking online at the odds, I mean, there's just going to be that element to this series, whereas I don't think we're seeing that in the Panthers Hurricane series. Brendan, what are you seeing up in Edmonton this weekend?
Up in Edmonton,
yeah.
I could see it being split. I could see Edmonton winning one and Dallas winning one and coming back to Dallas tied. I think that's a very real possibility.
Edmonton's minus 150 I'm looking at here for tomorrow night. Tonight, however, let's move to the Hurricanes and the Panthers. Good Lord. Is this even a series anymore, Brendan?
No, it's not. The Hurricanes have gotten absolutely embarrassed the first 2 games on their home ice. No reason to believe that's going to change going down to Florida. I think they could possibly steal a game in Florida just to avoid the sweep, but it ends in Game 5 if they're able to steal one of these wins. This series is over. Florida's going to the final.
Yeah, I don't see Florida giving up any kind of momentum here, Jack. And I think at minus 150 for tonight's matchup, I'd have to say, to make it interesting, you got to look at the 5.5 on the over under, because I mean, Florida's just been racking up their own goals here. What are you seeing, Jack?
Yeah, I mean, this is what Carolina does in these Eastern Conference Finals. Like, this is so typical, right? They're on a 14-game losing streak in the Eastern Conference Finals dating back to 2009. I believe that's the correct statistic. We see this all the time, where they are the better team, they have home field advantage, and they get smoked by Florida in the Eastern Conference Finals. So it's not surprising. They've been outscored 10-2. You know what I mean? Like, they shut out in Game 2 last night. Game 1, they get blown out 5-2. The Panthers are so comfortable in this situation. They know that the Hurricanes just historically have never really put up a fight. Florida is such a physical team. They started out so fast last night with the 3 goals in the first, I think it was the first quarter, right? Or the first period. They just overwhelmed Carolina in so many different ways. And then they get to go back to Florida and either complete the sweep or maybe they drop a game. But again, history has like demonstrated that like Carolina can't win these games at all. They can't do anything in the Eastern Conference. That's even like in the Eastern Conference Finals, it's like even remotely close or sniffing a W. So if I'm like a better, if I'm looking at DraftKings or whatever, maybe I'm taking a future bet on the sweep, or I don't know, maybe I'm parlaying two of those money lines. Like I don't know what if there's a line for game 4, there might not be, but maybe I'm trying to find some way to get some action and just sort of root for the sweep. I don't know. I mean, Carolina hasn't shown that they can win a game in the Eastern Conference Finals. 2009, that was Barack Obama's first term. Like, that's a long time to be losing all these games in the Eastern Conference Finals. Like that, I mean,
well, look at the last 4 periods of this series. Carolina has been outscored 10-1 in the last 4 periods. I mean, they are shell shocked at this point. Shell shocked, and that was at home. They have to be just utterly gutted in that locker room. And I saw a great video of the Panthers. I think this is probably one of the great underreported stories in sports these days, is the quality of the team that is the Florida Panthers. I think that's worth, reviewing, because we talk about some of the great teams in history. And I'm not suggesting one of the great teams in history, but what's going on in that locker room, hearing the coach talk about how every member of that team extols the virtues and the performance and what a great character every other player is. There is no one dominant guy here. They're just a great team. William?
I have to agree with that. I got a lot of friends in the Carolinas, and they're some Hurricane fans, and they do not like this Panthers team, but you cannot deny what they've been able to do in games 1 and 2. And I think if the Hurricanes were going to make this a series, it would have had to have already happened by now. They're known, they're kind of like the Thunder. They're known for the environment of their home ice. It's a tough place to play. Their fans get really into it, so they have to be gutted going into Florida right now. You can get the sweep at around plus 180. Kind of just like that Thunder and Timberwolves series. That's about what I'm looking at on all of these game prices. And the juice is on the under for this thing to go 5.5 games. So it's tough. And I hate it for the Hurricanes. I really thought that they were the team this year. They went out and made some different trades. They got Burns, they got Gensel, Aho, but they just weren't able to do anything offensively. That's just not going to work at this level.
Never have a problem when a Carolina team is losing. I mean, you have to understand, that's just not what we do. That is, I'm fine if a Carolina team at any level never wins another game ever. Ever.
Well, I mean,
football,
the Panthers,
baseball, basketball, college football, college basketball, field hockey, lacrosse. I don't care.
I mean, okay, but not too much on the Panthers. Jake Delhomme took them to a Super Bowl in like 2001. So, you always have that moment. My thing with the with Florida is just the kind of like they've like last year, of course, was such an incredible run for them. The year before that, they get this kind of Cinderella run, right? That was the year they lost to, I think, the Vegas Golden Knights. That was like 2023. So they have this sort of history now, the 2 Stanley Cups in a row. They're probably going to end up going to the third. They have this, like you say, this incredible culture, but they've won without being kind of like the dominant number 1 seed all the time. And they're so used to like playing on the road and dominating these teams. And last year's defeat of the Edmonton Oilers, and I think that Brendan that went to 7. So that was really incredible. And maybe we get a rematch. That'd be pretty awesome too, right? Another Oilers Panthers series would be pretty fun. But yeah, it's like nothing intimidates this team, right? Like they don't go to Carolina playing like a much better team on paper on the road and feel any type of pressure. They just go in and play their game and end up, coming out of that series 2-0. And so I don't know. I kind of think they're going to sweep Carolina because like they're just, again, it's maybe Carolina, steals game 3 and all of a sudden it's kind of a series and you just never know. But yeah, no, I think the series is probably over.
Pull back on the Florida Panthers here a little bit. Apply who they are as a culture, as a team, and in performing. They're the defending Stanley Cup champions. Apply them to a different sport. Who would the average viewer, listener go, yeah, I'm trying to understand hockey here, but who does this team relate to or compare to in other sports and in history? Who would you compare them to?
Maybe like the Phillies. Like the last couple of years that the Phillies have had these weird like playoff runs. Like it's a little bit different in baseball because like the Phillies haven't been as consistent, but kind of one of those teams that like they have these problems in the regular season. They get into the playoffs in a sort of a situation where they're the lowest seed or they're, a mid seed. Maybe they win a wild card game, etc. And then all of a sudden in the playoffs, they just start overwhelming everybody with the stuff that they do really well, like smashing home runs, right? So that's probably the first thing that comes to mind for me is just like the Philadelphia Phillies. Like here's this team that just seems to give everyone trouble in the playoffs, and also has like a long history of like losing in the playoffs as well. So that'd be, I think, my first analog.
That is a great comparison. Because when you mentioned that, the first person that came to mind, the first visual I had was Kyle Schwarber, right? The guy just mashes. He's just mashing the ball. He's just that guy, right? That guy on the team. You go, he's the guy. And there's like Florida's just like chock full of those guys, right? The guys who just get out there, perform, and get the job done. Brendan, can you compare this team to another one? College or pros?
None that I could think of off the top of my head. I love Jack's comparison to the Phillies. Honestly, today's Florida Panthers remind me, it's another hockey team, of course, but remind me of the Broad Street Bullies a little bit, the modern day Broad Street Bullies. I mean, this is a physical team. They not only beat you on the scoreboard, but they beat you up physically, and you've seen plenty of that these first two games against Carolina. Carolina may be the better team on paper, but when you're just getting beat up constantly, physically getting beat up, you can't sustain that after a while. And I think the physical play has made a huge difference for the Florida Panthers this postseason. You got Brad Marchand, who's a pest, gets under your skin. He makes a huge difference in that department as well. I love their physical play. That's the only other team, although it's another hockey team, that I could really point to and say what they're doing is similar to what this team did, and it's working.
William, who you got? Who do you liken them to?
This one is tough, and I know it's going to draw a little bit of a blowback here, but I think of the early stages of the Patriots dynasty when you're looking at you look at the talent on paper and you think nothing really stands out.
God, as much as I hate to say this, I think I agree with you. And there's no Tom Brady here, obviously, but
Bobrovsky, it's like when he gets into the playoffs, he kind of turns it on to this other level where it's like you don't want to play against this team, and it just reminds me of like the Wes Welkers, the Danny Amendolas. It's just guys, but together. Right. It's the the sum of the pieces are better than the pieces themselves, and
that's just heartbreaking to hear your own son talk about the Patriots like that. But you're absolutely right. It's just like they're those guys, because every time there's one of the great things about the Patriots organization and Bill Belichick as a coach. They had Tom Brady, and they had the ability to build their team. But when I look back at the Patriots, and again, I'm not a Patriots fan, but if you look at their lineups, I kind of go, who are these guys? They were just a lot of sort of like the no-name Dolphins, right? They didn't really know who they are. They were just going back to Miami. As far as the team and the culture and the dynamics of it and just who they were, all of a sudden they just turn it on, and they're just good at what they do. And just the tip the hat moment, you're like, that's just a damn good franchise. They're just getting it done, right? And you don't have to have the McDavids and the Dreisaitl's and the Connor Matthews and all these other folks out there, or Austin Matthews rather. the Crosbys and the Malkins to be the thing. But you sort of like think, who's the antithesis of this team? What's the opposite of that? I'd have to go like the Washington Capitals, right? They've got Ovechkin. They're supposed to be doing the thing, but they never get past the second round in the playoffs. Who would you say is the antithesis of the Florida Panthers in other sports? Like they should be a lot better, but they're just not.
Dallas Cowboys.
Thank you, God. You're on my Christmas card list all of a sudden. Jack, who do you like? Who do you think in that regard?
In terms of they're
just not that great. They should be much better than they are, but they're just not.
You talking about the Hurricanes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
Okay. Other than the Hurricanes, obviously.
Yeah.
Anyone else? You made a great comparison there with the Phillies, but who else out there just flat lines when they shouldn't be? They should be so much better, but they're just not. Ravens. Oof. That's close.
I don't know about the Ravens. I mean, maybe like that's not a bad comparison. The problem with the Ravens is like it's like the same thing with the Bills, right? It's like, well, what do you do with the Chiefs, right? Like, I mean, is it that the Ravens or the Bills are just not like as like they just keep flailing around, or is it that they get up into this situation where they can't like get past the Chiefs because the Chiefs are just so much better? So I'm not exactly sure if it's like that the Ravens keep sort of failing, but I mean I kind of like that some of the Cowboy comparisons when they're like really good, that seems pretty like a pretty useful comparison. I'm trying to think of like a baseball one of like a team that just, you know, maybe like remember like the Yankees, like, I mean, really even now, but those runs kind of where the Astros kept beating them over and over and over again, and they were like way favored to like get past this sort of team that was extremely frustrating for them, and then, you know, just could never do it. So, you know, possibly, but again, I mean, the Yankees gave the Astros some really good series back then.
I would say like the 90s Braves, like when they won one.
Oh, there we go. Boom. God, that means
yeah.
Nate, I don't know you, but you're like almost outranked Brendan, because you not only crapped on the team I like to crap on the most, the Atlanta Braves, but they stole my heart, Sid Bream in particular, in the early 1992. Go ahead. I don't want to take away from the moment. Go ahead, please.
No. I mean that was all. Like we were just talking about teams that fall flat, and it was like, you know, I remember when the Braves were on TBS. Everyone, you know, watched all the time. Like they were like America's team because they were the only one that everyone watched all the time. But they only had the one World Series victory, even though they won like 8 divisional titles or something like that. They were always in the playoffs. They were always the dominant team, but they just never really, except for the one year, got like over.
Right? Yeah, that's true. But I mean, you know, 92, they're in the World Series in 92. They win in 95, but especially those sort of later years where they're so good and they just start. I mean, they just lose all the time. So yeah, I was kind of struggling to find a baseball one. I think there are football ones out there, but I think that's probably the best. Unless we start going back to, I don't know, like sometimes some of these baseball guys, you get them on the show and they'll start talking about like the 1940s, and then you're like, okay, well, I'm out. You know, once we 70s and onward, maybe I can do. But some of these baseball guys would be like, well, you know, you should have seen the Kansas City Royals back in 1955. What a great team. And it's just like, okay, well, forget it. But yeah, the Braves are probably
William, who's your underperforming team of all time?
I mean, they kind of broke the curse last year, but I think it was the Dodgers over the last 10, 15 years, winning 100 games, and then Kershaw would just get shelled, and their starting pitching couldn't hold up in the playoffs. But you look at some of those rosters, I mean, they were some great teams in there that just could never find a way to get it done in a relatively weak National League. Everybody thought that they would just walk through it, and they never could. And it's a lot like the Capitals. Like, they win that President's Cup, and they're kind of like, that's the season, and we're moving on. So, yeah, you know, you hate to see it in sports, but there's just teams that turn it on in the playoffs, and they find that edge, and they find that next level, and teams that kind of stay at that regular season, you know, purgatory of sports.
Well, one thing about the Dodgers, and I'll always respect them for what they did for sports in America by integrating baseball, and I'll tip the hat to them. I mean, it's just deep respect for the organization for doing what they did. But yeah, they just had this underperformance in the playoffs that is sort of mystifying. And in a way, I kind of like rooting it for against the overdog, because it's like, wait a second, you've spent all this money, you should be a lot better. You bought the talent, you bought the team, but you're just not a great team, right? You got a lot of great players, but you're not a great team, and that's what the Florida Panthers are. They're a great team, and I love that about sports. You can delineate great organizations and great championships by the quality of the team that actually plays the game on the field. And if you had to pick a team of all time, like the team, not like your favorites, but the team that exemplified that component in winning sports, who would it be, Nate Perry?
I'm sorry, say that again.
If they were at the team aspect, the culture, the team that wins because they're just a great team, not made of a lot of great stars, but the team aspect, the culture, the chemistry, the team that wins, who would that be for you?
I think that it was probably the Astros in like the 2010s to 2020-ish, like that. They were probably better than the individual pieces on that team. Like all of those players performed really well, like in like 2015, 2016, and then they went elsewhere and didn't perform as well. I would say that's, one. I think about the Chiefs a lot for that sort of thing. Like they are driven by one singularly great player, but the rest of the team has always been fairly average. They have a great coach with Andy Reid, and they have a great quarterback with Patrick Mahomes, and everyone else on the team probably doesn't perform as well if they go anywhere else. It's just for whatever reason, they are better there.
Gotcha. Fair. Brendan?
Yeah.
I think I would pick the early Vegas Golden Knights team because, honestly, who did they have that other than Marc-Andre Fleury when the team was formed? They brand themselves as the band of misfits, and they went to the final their very first year. Now,
that's a great pick.
Now, where are any of those guys now that were on those original Golden Knight teams? Where are they now? Some of them are playing, but you never see them in highlight reels anymore. You never hear.
That's a great pick, and one of the great underreported stories in all of sports history are the franchise, the expansion team finals team of the Golden Knights. What the hell was that? They should have been like 10-60 that year, but they weren't.
Yeah,
Jack,
I think the Knights are a really good analog here for the sort of complete team success, right? Again, the expansion, the having basically like four players that were interchangeable, that were just incredible in the playoffs and delivered a huge win. I think that it's hard for me to think of others that I was trying to think of some others. The Chiefs, I think, were the other one that really kind of popped into my head, mostly because it's a little bit different because of Patrick Mahomes and maybe because of Andy Reid, but other than Travis Kelce, that team has sort of been a revolving door of mediocre talent, and they continue to, it's like, and it's what everybody talks about. It's like that they practice the right way, like that they get better throughout the season, right? That was the thing they always said about those Belichick teams was, oh, well, they may look like this in September, but watch out in January when they really get going. And Andy Reid just seems to be able to do so much with so little that I would probably put them up there. There's no real analog in college football because the team with the best players always ends up kind of in the national championship or in that conversation anyway. And the Astros are a good one too. I don't know. I think baseball's a little bit different, that there's been plenty of teams like that, but not that have this kind of now what I think we are going to look at as a pretty sustained run. For baseball, the Astros are maybe the only one to do that. But there's a couple others in baseball that you could maybe pick out and say, okay, well, this team didn't really have any stars, right? But baseball can be weird. The Rockies went to a World Series once. You know what I mean? That team sucked. So it's just baseball just is weird that way.
William?
Yeah, I think another one that kind of fits this mold is you look at the San Antonio Spurs for
a 20-year
that's where
period. I was kind of thinking,
Yeah. Popovich was just able to create that. It was just the culture, and the pieces were kind of interchangeable, and you didn't know which one was going to go off on which night. I think Tim Duncan's the only one that won an MVP throughout that, time. But, they had so many different pieces at so many different time periods throughout that legacy run. So, it's just it's great to see it in sports when it lasts for a really long time.
Agree with you. I think that's a testament to Pop and what he's built there. Let's talk about underperforming cities. What cities in American sports history just can't get it done? Nate Perry.
I mean, for so long it was like Cleveland, right? Like that seems like the easy answer. It was like, you know, the Browns just mired in, you know, like not even mediocrity, just horrific football team. You know, the Cavs, it never looked like they were going to get over the hump until, you know, Braun came back, and then, you know, it happens. The Indians, you know, never being there. Like, I think that for a long time, you know, now the Guardians, I think for a long time it was like you could look at Cleveland and be like, you know, they're a proud city with 3 franchises and they all stink. That's sort of like the first one that comes to mind, I think, for me.
Brendan?
I would have to agree. I mean, you can't think of a city that's any worse than Cleveland when it comes to sports. I mean, what do they have? 1 championship in the last how many years? Yeah, give me the mistake by the lake.
Mistake by the lake, Cleveland. We're going to go with sweep here, Jack. Or are you going to correct them?
I don't know. I mean, like Seattle pops into my head.
Yep.
You know, except for, you know, the Seahawks, of course, had a pretty incredible run really not too long ago. But if we're just talking about like cities that have had difficulty lately, I think Seattle sort of pops in my head. I think Phoenix, out where I am, sort of pops into my head. I mean, again, you've got the Diamondbacks W in like 2001. I think that's it. The Cardinals lost that sort of heartbreaker Super Bowl against the Steelers, if you remember that one from quite a long time ago. Now I can't remember the exact date. And then, of course, the Diamondbacks kind of Cinderella run a couple years ago where they lost to, I believe, the Rangers in the World Series. And then, you know, I don't know. I mean, it depends if you count the Coyotes as like a storied franchise here. But yeah, maybe Phoenix. You know, yeah, maybe Phoenix, maybe Seattle. I don't know. I mean, it just depends how far back you want to go. But
this is again, it's part of the culture, because the culture defines a city. What does that do for the city of Cleveland? Right, we're just losers, right? And for the Cubs, they're the lovable losers for the longest time, right? And that builds into your culture. We're talking about culture here. We're talking about the culture of Florida Panthers, the Patriots, overperforming, underperforming cities, though. How it can dominate a culture. William, what do you got in this one?
They're relatively new to the professional sports scene, but I think you have to talk about Charlotte a little bit here, and the Panthers just being a team that hasn't been able to get it done. Went to 2 Super Bowls, but lost both of them. You know, had some really terrible seasons since then. And then the Charlotte Hornets have never won. I've never even gotten to an Eastern Conference Finals. So 0 division titles even. So, you know, relatively new to the scene. You know, that 50-year stretch where Cleveland didn't get anything done was, you know, the worst, I think, in any city's history. But when you're talking about in relation to expectation, New York as a whole, between the Giants, the Jets, the Mets, they love talking about. I mean, and a lot of it is just the fans like to crap on their own teams a little bit, but a lot of it is like in relation to that expectation, they should be a lot better than they are in almost every team across the spectrum there.
Because when you look at, if you compare New York with other national teams, so national capital teams, this is like the financial capital, London, Madrid, you win. Milan wins, right? You have to be a win. Paris, PSG. I mean, you have the national brand for those teams are their national centers of population. But for me, and that's a great pick. I mean, people wouldn't talk about it, but New York for the last 10, 15 years has underperformed as a market. But for me, the one that has just never been any good at anything is San Diego. Dear God, they just can't get anything right. They just can't. I mean, they spend a lot of money on, but then you say, well, San Diego's never been really good. That's my point. And they're one of the top 10 markets in the country from population standpoint. Phoenix is a great add-on there, because they should be a lot better with the market and the money they have to power up those franchises. They just never have. And San Diego just has if you ever been out there, they just don't care about their sports. They just don't care. If you look, if you had that weather, you wouldn't care about it either. You'd be outside enjoying it.
Yeah, and like San Diego's a weird one because it's like, okay, I mean, I guess we still count the Chargers even as like an LA team. You know,
and the Clippers.
They're
they
still
moved.
There, and that's
they
right.
left.
The Clippers,
they left. That's how bad they are.
But if we attach those two teams to the San Diego market, and then of course the Padres, who have been aggressive in trying to buy as much talent as they can. Unfortunately, they play in a division that is stacked with talent, and that you can't really get past the Dodgers. It can be difficult to do that. But yeah, San Diego is a good one. I don't think that San Diegans care about the citizens of San Diego care too much about their teams. I mean, yeah,
it's always been like that argument with like the Florida teams too, right? It's like, well, if you can just go to the beach, like you're not going to go to a game. Like that's right. That's always been the argument about like the Rays, Miami, like nobody goes to those games. Like they're just empty because it's like it's beautiful there. Why would you go?
Because I've been out there for a sports weekend. It's like I'd rather hang out at the beach.
Well,
all right, overperforming cities, franchises.
Oh, I mean, Boston pops into my head kind of first, right? As like this team with just an incredible wealth of championships over the last like 15 to 20 years. Like that's got to be the first one that just kind of immediately pops into my head. This is a city that has had championships in everything: football, baseball, hockey, basketball. They just won a championship in basketball. They may well have won this year without the Tatum injury as well, right? Like so I think Boston is it's tough because in relationship to the population size and the amount of fans who care about those teams, etc. Like I think it's maybe overperforming is kind of a weird word to use for them because I think we just expect at this point that Boston teams are going to be good, but all these teams seem to be pretty good. So I would say Boston.
The consistency of all the sports. It's not like one drops off. In the Bruins, Celtics, Patriots, Red Sox been down a little bit. Brendan, what do you got there? Overperforming cities.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to find one better than Boston. Boston sports have dominated the last 20 years. The Patriots have won a lot. The Red Sox have won World Series. The Bruins have won Stanley Cups. I mean, and of course you have the Celtics. I mean, there hasn't been a more successful sports city in the last 20 years than Boston.
William?
Yeah, I have to agree. Just for the consistency, like you said, I wish I could throw Pittsburgh in there because in relation to the media market that it is, but the Pirates are just so bad that it just tanks the entire city.
Until 8 years ago, you could have said that. Nate?
I mean, I think that it used to be sort of a joke city, but lately I think that there's some real momentum, like just in Philadelphia.
Fair.
I mean,
aside from the Flyers,
three straight playoff runs for the Phillies. Been to the Super Bowl 2 out of the last 3 years for the Eagles. NBA. I mean, the Sixers have been in the playoffs like 7 years in a row. Like as far as just they all have teams there. I think that there's always like the disappointment for the Sixers. Like you always think like maybe this is the year they get over. But just in terms of just being consistently in the postseason, like Philly's got a lot to be happy about, I think.
They do. And
I would say
the Flyers stuff brings them down. But I want to move. I want to move here if we can. Go ahead, real quick.
I would say just real quick, if we have this conversation in 3 or 4 years, I think it's going to be Detroit. That's where I think we're going to be like, oh my god, like so many of those teams are trending in the right direction. If you're
let's talk about that then. Okay, cities of the future. We're going to go to Jack. I'm going to back it up and say Pittsburgh until 8 years ago when the Pirates and the Penguins sort of flatlined and the Steelers became mediocre, although a winning franchise. But this lost that momentum as a city. Historically, Pittsburgh has overperformed with the number of championships relative to the market size. Let's go to cities of the future. Jack Fredericks, you say Detroit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at the Tigers. Like, who knows how they'll do in the playoffs? But they've been, trending in the right direction. I think they're still in first place right now. They've been playing great baseball. You've got the Lions, who, I think we all are hoping at some point they're going to get it done. And maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't, but they're right there. They're on the cusp, and they're definitely overperforming as in relation to kind of how they've done.
It looks like Jack froze there. I agree on Detroit. Love to see that. It's great for the city. Brendan Statler, what about you? Comeback cities or cities of the future?
Yeah, I like Detroit as well, but I'm also going to lump in our own Pittsburgh in this. I think the Steelers are going to turn around here in the near future, and I don't think anybody's expecting the Penguins to be bad forever. I think that everybody's expecting them to contend here in the near future. The Pirates are just what the Pirates are. There's no expectation there.
Nate Perry, comeback cities or cities of the future?
This is a fairly recent one, but I think that it's one that people will be sort of talking about for a long time. It's Vegas. I think that Las Vegas, I think is a city that is built to support many sports franchises, just because of the volume of money. That the A's will be there, I think next year, or 2028, I guess, is sort of the timeline for the A's. The Raiders look like they're finally maybe starting to figure some things out in terms of getting a real product on the field. And I think that, and obviously the Golden Knights are, since their inception have been sort of a known commodity in the NHL. So I think that, people in Vegas, I think, can support these teams, and unlike sort of some of those other places where it's like, if you're in San Diego, you're not really thinking about going to a Padres game. The way that Vegas has sort of manufactured their sports teams and sort of their outlook with sports teams is that, people will go to Vegas anyways, and they will want to go to a game because it's so convenient next to the Strip. Everyone's sort of there anyways. Everyone kind of probably wants a little bit of a break from the blackjack table at some point. And it's such a different environment. So I think Vegas is sort of an up and coming sports town.
Yeah, and you're placing bets on sporting events, so it just kind of goes hand in hand in Vegas.
Yeah, they'll fill up. We get the Raiders. It's Oakland South, isn't it? William.
Well, I think we've had some great answers so far, and I don't disagree with any of them. But the one that I would throw into the mix is going to be Houston, just because I believe in what the Houston Texans are doing long term, and I think that the Rockets are, they made the playoffs this year, really young team, got a good coach there, so I think that they could really turn into something long term. And then the Astros have been good for the last 10 or so years, so. Between those three, I think Houston, could be a really, really big up and comer. That's where I'd like to bet on them for the next 10 to 20 years. But I think Vegas is a great answer.
Going to throw a wild card out there, Minneapolis. There's just a little bit something going on there with the Wolves. You got the Wild. You got the Vikings playing well. You got the Twins playing well. I'm going to put those all on the deck right there. Since we talked about Pittsburgh, since we talked about the Steelers a little bit, and William and I have it in the background there, and Brendan's from outside, let's do a couple minutes on Aaron Rodgers. What the hell's going on there? Brendan Statler, what are you hearing? What's the vibe there?
This is the most dramatic free agent signing I have ever seen.
Is it still? But still, is it dramatic anymore? Does anyone give a crap anymore? It's just nothing's happened. It's like who cares at this point? Show up or don't show up.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that, but this is getting a lot of attention from local media. You read anything on the Steelers right now, Aaron Rodgers is at the center of it, and I think it's more of the surprise that Pittsburgh is still continuing to wait on him to make the decision. Now, I think the team has a better shot of winning with him, but this waiting to see what he's going to do. If he's got that many personal issues to deal with, maybe they should move on. It's getting beyond the point of ridiculousness.
Nate Perry.
It's crazy, but this is Aaron Rodgers, right?
Yes.
Aaron Rodgers is always going to put Aaron Rodgers first. It seemed pretty obvious from the jump that he wasn't terribly interested in going to Pittsburgh. He seemed like he was really trying to do his best Brett Favre emulation and go to the Vikings as his next stop after the Jets. But obviously that doesn't look like it's going to work out. They seem, content with JJ McCarthy as he gets healthy.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess like I'm just not understanding why teams are willing to play Aaron Rodgers' games at his age 41 season after having a profoundly mediocre year last season. You can say that it was a little bit of injury, whatever. He just didn't look like the same guy. And I don't think you're going to, Father Time is like undefeated in this sort of thing. Like he's not going to be faster next year. He's not going to be stronger with his arm next year. It's just not how it works. Like, Achilles injury or not, like he's just not, there are things that he used to be able to do that he can no longer do. And I'm not sure why teams are, and I think that it's, sort of a testament to that is that, basically 31 teams in the NFL basically said like, we're not really interested. And the Steelers are the only ones that are because they're sort of in this desperate situation.
If this is Tom Brady, he's already in the quarterback room working with the team, right? That's what separates the greats from the greatest of all time. Well, the greatest of this era, anyway. I don't ascribe eras to all time. William, what do you think there? Aaron Rodgers. I'm gonna go to Jack Fredericks. Let's be quick about this.
It's just a question of who needs who more. Right? Do the Steelers need Aaron Rodgers more than Aaron Rodgers needs the Steelers? And right now, that's what they're trying to work through. And, he wants the 2-year deal. The Steelers only want to give him a 1-year deal. I don't think there's any reason to give him a 2-year deal. So I would hold it out as long as possible, because if not, he's not playing football next year. So, and that's what he's okay with, then fine. But we're in a really tough spot with Rudolph and Howard. So I'm not putting any expectations on the season. A lot of people are asking me what to expect from the Steelers. I'm not even answering the question until we know.
They'll do good enough to have a winning season. That's it.
That's and that right now that is in serious jeopardy. Jack Fredericks, Aaron Rodgers, what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, Father Time is undefeated, but like Joe Flacco still has a job. You know what I mean? Like he's 150. So I think the other issue with the Rodgers thing, other than he's expensive for what he is that like, how do you approach an old like quarterback that used to have success if you want to sign him? You say, oh, well, maybe he can get us, 7 or 8 wins before he gets hurt, or maybe he can, be a leader in the locker room to like mentor like young quarterbacks, or maybe he can be sort of like a player coach who's like drawn up play. But like Aaron Rodgers isn't going to do any of that. He's not like a good person to have like around the team. He actually is like kind of toxic around the team, and that has worked for him in the past. But I'm not sure it works as like an aging veteran who like isn't as effective and is dealing with an Achilles injury that really takes years and years to feel completely 100% fine. And so like why take a chance? Even like because you could sign him for 2 years if the idea is like he's going to stick around and mentor the younger guys or whatever, or do anything but like he's not going to do any of that, so this just becomes sort of a circus, which that is what Aaron Rodgers likes. He is a guy who
drama queen.
If he doesn't get signed, like if he doesn't get signed now, we'll be talking about this in October when some quarterback gets hurt and Aaron Rodgers comes and he's like, I've been stretching. I feel pretty good. I could probably step in and get Baltimore a couple wins. You never know. Like that's just who Aaron Rodgers is. And so like he's never going away. He will be a topic of conversation until all of us are dead.
Here's the problem with this whole conversation. This is so antithetical to the culture of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
it's like, what do you do? Because
that's the problem.
Plays. Yeah. He's going to call plays. He's going to bring his own playbook. He sets the development of the team back when he does that stuff with his dated playbook. And then it's like, yeah, it is antithetical.
This is one of the great problems of Mike Tomlin. He's known as a great players coach. At the end of the day, it's still a team. It's still 52, 53 guys in the field who have to go out of the tunnel and go, we have a leader here. We know what we're doing. And we don't know what we're doing with Aaron Rodgers. This is not a guy who's coming in and saying, guys, we're going to win the Super Bowl this year. And everyone's going to get behind that guy. So great quarterback, great legacy, but I just think this is so antithetical to the Pittsburgh community and what they expect out of their football of all their teams. This is why they're getting ready to burn an effigy, Bob Nutting, for not even trying to win. That's all that city knows how to do is win in sports. They get up every day trying to win in sports. William, you saw that up close and personal. Let's move over to the Preakness. I mean, the Belmont Stakes here, smaller field, longer track. What are we seeing there? Is it journalism's time for a repeat, Brendan?
I'm going to go with journalism just because I picked journalism last time and turned out to be right. So I'm going to continue to ride that out.
You're going to double down those winnings. Yep. Nate Perry, What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good pick there as well. Yeah, I like journalism.
Jack?
I don't know. Journalism, yeah, like fine, right? Like the Preakness winner is always pretty well primed to win the Belmont. We've gotten to the point in the Triple Crown where the Kentucky Derby winner often skips the Preakness, so Sovereignty should be like well rested. But the Belmont is a very different race than the Kentucky Derby, so you just never really know. I kind of like Beza, who like the third place finisher at the Kentucky Derby at 7-2. I mean, I just don't like. I don't know what to do with like journalism at 9-5. Like, oh my God, great! I won $8. Like, incredible. You know what I mean? Now I have a coffee. Even Beza is 7-2. So like, I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying you need to pick a long shot, but it's like it's hard to get excited about like 9-5 odds. Now these could change. It's June 7th, so a couple weeks away. But yeah, I mean, early on, I'm looking at someone like Beza, but yeah, look, journalism looked incredible, and then Sovereignty is 8-5. So I mean, those are the two.
That Preakness run was just spectacular. William?
Yeah, have to agree with everyone here. It doesn't really seem that there's much of a shot with how Vegas is looking at it, at least outside of journalism, Sovereignty, and Beza. So I'll probably be looking to box them in a 1-2-3, 3-2-1, 2-1-3, and just try to hit an exacta with those three.
Fun.
And if it falls outside of that, I think that's the only way to really make money at this one.
And to have fun.
I had a good bit on journalism.
And to have fun, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but like Jack said, it's hard to get involved at some of these 7-2 type of odds.
This is
but it's going to be a great race.
This is a great way to tease up next week's show. We'll be talking about the Preakness a little bit more intensively, obviously, as we get into the proximity to the race itself, because William's older sister there is friends with a lot of the trainers in Saratoga, and we get a lot of the back channeling going on there. And I remember it was the Derby. We were at the Squirrels game, and Mary Catherine texted us and said Baez is absolutely scaring the other horses in the field. In the tunnel, and like they're all afraid of him, and so I put a bet on him to try to make a little bit of money, and he came up close, but that was part of the fun of the operation. So we'll take a much deeper look at the Belmont Stakes next week as we get ready. But let's do some consensus picks for this weekend. What are we looking at? Stars, Edmonton Oilers. Brendan, let's just go around the horn. Pick it.
I'm going to pick the Stars in 6.
William?
I'm going with the Oilers.
Oilers series price.
In 6 as well.
Jack?
I'll take the Stars, and I think tonight I'll take them. I'll take the money line tonight. Like, I think they're way underdogs.
Okay.
So because then it was like -150. So give me a little a little juice on the Stars.
Nate.
Yeah.
I like Edmonton here. I like Edmonton to get through this in 6 or 7.
I'd like to see a rematch myself. Edmonton in 7. Oof, in Dallas for Game 7. That's not good. That's not smart. I'm going to back that one up. Dallas in 7 at home in Game 7. What am I talking here? That's a little too scary. Let's go. Florida, do they sweep? Brendan?
I think Carolina pulls out one win, so I'm going to say Florida in 5. I think they get a lucky bounce.
No sweep. Yeah. Nate, we're all picking Florida to win. Do they sweep?
I don't think they sweep. I mean, it's just too hard to sweep. Carolina will find a way to get one, but but that's
They
probably
squeak out one.
it.
Okay,
Yeah.
they're on the road. They're on the road next 2 games. I think they take 2 at home. I'm going for a sweep. Jack?
Yeah, Florida sweep. Again, Carolina hasn't won one of these games since
William?
2009.
They're due, man.
No reason they start now.
What are you finishing up at, William?
Yeah, they're due to win one.
No, they're not.
It's such a hard sport
No, they're
to
not.
sweep it, and
They're-
you don't see it in the conference finals. So, yeah, I'm going with Florida.
And talk about an overperforming market. How about Raleigh, right? Raleigh, North Carolina. I got one. All right, let's finish up here. Guys, really appreciate you joining us today. Memorial Day weekend, let's give a shout out to those men and women in the United States military who gave the ultimate for our freedoms, for the ability to join from all across the country here. Tempe, Myrtle Beach, outside of Pittsburgh. Nate, I don't even know where you are. Are you in Houston?
I'm in Corpus Christi, Texas. Yeah.
Corpus Christi.
So
That's we call that warm. That's a different kind of warm down there. That is an extremely uncomfortable place to be. But appreciate you joining us, Nate. Hope to have you back here. Really enjoyed the insights Jack and Nate provided this week. Really good stuff on the fly there, and joining the program here to get us through the Memorial Day weekend. Let's give thanks and honor to those who went before us and gave us the ability to do this. Gentlemen, have a great weekend. We're going to turn it back to Al in the booth. Al, take it away.